Bases dropped on a Tuesday morning in Atlanta, Georgia. It's Soccer Down here for April 23rd. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you this morning. And, John, since we were slammed yesterday with Overreaction Monday, fun times, all the fun on an Overreaction Monday after an Atlanta United loss. Let's get into the weekend that was around the league, because I thought it was a pretty interesting weekend, and we learned a few things around Major League Soccer. Everything started Friday night, and I don't know how much we learned about this one, but Cincinnati at home, 3-0. I wouldn't say thrashing. I think the scoreline looks a little bit bigger than the game felt, but a comprehensive win for Real Salt Lake on the road in Cincinnati. What was your takeaways here?
Well, I have always wondered about RSL on the road. And you go into Cincinnati, and I know it's a first-year team, and you sit there, and it's like, all right, what do you sit there and take from a first-year team going up against an RSL side? And so for me, I've always predicated RSL's success leading into the postseason, getting into the postseason, and what they can do on the road. And I don't know what to take away from this other than the fact that you went into Cincinnati and put, a lot of shots on target, and you were outshot, but you ended up putting 3 more in the net than the other guy. So it's like, okay, you went in, you've got to win. I don't know if for me it means that I'm reading more into it as a positive for RSL or as a negative for FC Cincinnati just because of what went down. And so,
well, you got to take it as a positive for RSL. I mean, it's you scored 3 on the road. You had 7 shots on target. That's a good night at the office. And RSL, Albert Rusnak especially, there's nothing you can take away from them. On the Cincinnati side, you look at, you're missing Greg Garza right now. I think you're still trying to figure out what your best way to play is. I mean, we don't know what's going on with Fernando Adi and how long he's going to be out with his issues.
Yep.
Darren Maddox is up top. He's not the same player. You have a ton of central midfielders, and I think you're trying to figure out what permutation works best for them with Alan Cruz, with Leonardo Bertoni, with Victor Ulloa. You've got plenty of options. Fatai Alashe, Eric Alexander can play in there. I think they need to get Kekuta Mane, Kenny Safe, and Darren Maddox together in the attack with speed. I would honestly probably play essentially a 4-3-3, but it's a deep 3 in the central midfield with Cruz, Bertoni, and Ulloa, or if you want to throw Alexander or whatever, you can mix it up. But those 3 sitting deep, not really playing with a true 10, and you're playing direct to speed on the wings with Mane, with Safe, and with Maddox up top. You do have Roland Lamah, who can come in and give you a change of pace as well. You got to get more secure defensively, and you got to be defense first. I think that's just where you're at with Cincinnati right now. They're the prototypical new team figuring it out on the fly. It's not a shock, but yeah, they've hit a little rough patch here, and we'll see what Alan Koch can do to change it.
And looking at what Kenny Safe was visibly frustrated on the pitch, and RSL pretty much locked him in, and no shots at all for Kenny Safe. And we've always looked at Safe when he came in the door as a pretty good acquisition for them for a first year team. But I
not
looked
in
at
taking a bunch of shots though. I mean, that's not what you have Kenny Safe for. Kenny Safe is there to create for others. That's where his role is going to be.
He wasn't even able to do that.
Well, it's because you're kind of disjointed right now in how you're playing, and I think this is what Cincinnati has to figure out. Like, who are you? What are you going to be? If you're going to be a team that concedes possession and just doesn't want the ball very much and tries to play on the counter, cool. Real Salt Lake gave you 51% of the ball here, so you had to do something with it, and you didn't really get much done with it. I mean, you look at things like key passes. Safe created 4 chances. That's that's what he's there to do. But outside of that, there's 5 other chances. It's Lamar with a couple. It's Alashe as a sub late with a couple as the game's already decided, and Ulloa with one. It's not enough. Just not enough chances created, and you get shut out at home. Albert Rusnak just destroys you, even with his fingers broken or dislocated or whatever happened. That's gross. Bad night at the office for Cincinnati. We'll see if they can bounce back. Toronto, Minnesota, craziness. 4-3. Minnesota players, I think Michael Boxall insinuated that there were some very heated discussions afterwards in the locker room, and maybe there were some things thrown, and maybe some marks left on walls, and maybe a bill coming their way. Who knows? But Minnesota just took the lead, conceded it with 2 goals in 3 minutes, took the lead back, and then conceded it with 2 goals in 3 minutes again.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't give up back-to-back goals in 3 minutes. You just can't. Now, you're missing Ike Opara. You're back to last year's type of defense with Boxall, with Kallman, with Calvo. You're going to concede a lot of goals with that. Just flat out. That's what's going to happen. This is a dangerous team going forward. If Minnesota can get Ike Opara back and can just get some continuity with Alonso and Grey Goose in front of them, Opara running things in the back, they're going to be okay, but they're going to have these types of games where it all just falls apart and you get crushed by a guy like Alejandro Pozuelo, who scores twice, 3 shots on target, 5 key passes. Complete performance from Pozuelo. Jordan Hamilton with the 2 goals in 3 minutes to tie and win the game as he came on for a sub. I guess the biggest story, though, after this, which is kind of crazy after a 4-3 wild game, was Josie Altidore calling the club president out afterwards. Very upset that one of the members of the training staff who'd come over with Sebastian Giovinco and specifically worked a lot with Altidore on his hamstrings, he was not brought back to the club, and Altidore insinuated that the president, Bill Manning, had issues with this trainer because he had been associated with Giovinco, and Josie was a little fired up after the game.
Yes.
He has since backed down from those statements, and also that trainer was seen providing treatment to Toronto players, I believe the next day or the day after. So I don't know who was right, who was wrong here, but man, it never fails. Something weird happens in Toronto every time.
Yeah, and I guess let's take this a team at a time, because I've got a thought about Minnesota as well. But since we're on the Toronto side of things, you look at what Pozuelo has been able to do to basically jumpstart that team. And he's been a joy to watch. His creativity and how his brain works, you've got to be on your best 100% brain game. Whatever brain food you take defensively going up against Toronto, Pozuelo seems to be thinking in 3 dimensions right now, and he's a fun watch. But no, you can't have Pozuelo score 2 in a minute 50 and then have Hamilton, who only played 17, have 2, I think, in 2:10. And the wildness that was at BMO was, I mean, it was a fun watch for those of us who were neutrals, but I'm sure that you had a lot of folks who were pulling their hair out on both sides. Quintero scores twice for Minnesota, but can we talk about just Gregish getting the red and then Calvo kind of losing his mind in the last handful of minutes, and just how when the wheels came off, they really came off for Minnesota?
Gregish lost his mind too. I mean, you have 2 reds
Studs
late
up
after you've blown the game. That can honestly not necessarily be a horrible thing, depending on how they bounce back. Gregish frustrated, Calvo frustrated. You gave up 2 goals late after you'd fought back in to take the lead. Okay, frustration's good. You should be upset. You should be kind of ticked off at that point. What are you going to do with it now? And you do have a match coming up now where you're going to miss both of those guys. That's a problem. But how do you bounce back from there? Is this one of those turning points that you could have because of this? I hope it is, for Minnesota's sake. I think this is a team, again, I think they're a playoff team. They got to host the LA Galaxy. tomorrow without these guys. We'll see how that goes. Missing two defensive pieces against the LA Galaxy right now is not exactly where you want to be.
No.
But they get back home on the weekend on Sunday, and they host DC United. That's the one where you want to see the turnaround. You want to handle things as well as you can against LA. The Galaxy are flying right now. We'll get into them in a second. But you need to see a much more coherent team, especially defensively, if you're Minnesota on Sunday, 1:30, as you host DC United, because in my opinion, this is make or break, playoffs or bust for Minnesota and Adrian Heath. And he's essentially said the same. I mean, that's not news. I think he feels it. He embraces it. And hopefully that pressure is now real for this team in a good way. Not in an overwhelming way, because you've got guys like Opara and Alonso and Grey Goose who have been around the block. They should be able to handle these sorts of things, and it's going to be down to those guys and that leadership. And it's going to have to turn the corner. It's not like you punt on the Galaxy game, but anything you get there is a bonus. You've got to beat DC when they come to town on Sunday. Let's get to the Galaxy. Galaxy was the nightcap on Friday night. They beat Houston in a pretty good match, a pretty even match, to be honest. Houston went on the road and gave LA everything they could. Zlatan scored with a penalty in the first half. Albert Ellis scored with a penalty in the second half, and it was very, very late, 88th minute. Center back Diego Polenta off of a Jonathan Dos Santos cross, and LA Galaxy take the 2-1 win. Not surprised about the win for the Galaxy. I think I'm more surprised about the quality of the Dynamo here, and I thought they showed that they're a real contender in the West.
Yeah, and when you're healthy, when you've got
healthy.
Your piece.
I think we need to stop. I think we that's an easy one on Houston. I think we need to stop going there. They are healthy, and they do have a good roster. They don't have the depth of some teams in the league. Got as much depth as a lot of teams, though, and they've got a lot of quality. So I think we're past that now. I think they've proven themselves. I think it's not about, well, if and maybe and possibly. No, Houston, to me, you go to LA on a Friday night and you go toe-to-toe with them, and it takes an 88th minute winner to beat you. I think you are among the elite in the Western Conference if you're the Houston Dynamo. I think you've proven that so far.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at their roster. You see, Memo, even though he only played 20, Cabezas, Manotas, Tomas Martinez, Ailey's. The pieces are there, and we've kind of been waiting for them to have this kind of a result on the road, and they get this kind of result on the road. I think for LA, having Alessandrini removed after 16 minutes because of injury, I think it's something that you have to look at if you're a Galaxy follower and sit there and go, okay, what's the latest / all right, what's the path for Alessandrini, and how do you try to work things around offensively? But, Zlatan, 6 shots, got the goal, 2 shots on net. And, I want to see now with Boateng probably in there for Alessandrini on the swap. All right, how does that twist things? So for me, I'm looking at the Galaxy toward the top, but no, I'm looking forward to seeing what Houston can do on the field. And I really, really want, and I know this is a point that we've made in the past, I want people to go see an exciting product in Houston. I really do. And I want butts in the seats. And we've talked about it a lot. We've talked to Glenn Davis about it. It's a market that I think really truly can embrace the Dynamo, and I hope that this is that season where they start to do that.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope they can turn the corner and be one of the elites. Matias Vera coming into the midfield has really helped a lot. That takes some of the pressure off of Cabezas. It's just a better, complete team with Houston. But I've said it before, we'll give Giancarlo Gonzalez a little bit of time to get into the mix with the Galaxy. I think on paper, the Galaxy are the best team in the Western Conference. Now, they've got to prove it. They've got to keep Alessandrini healthy if they can. They've got to keep Zlatan healthy if they can. Those are two guys, I think, a little bit more with the Zlatan because of the goal scoring and the presence that he brings. But You've got to stay healthy. That's something I think every team in MLS has to deal with key players. But on paper, the Galaxy are a better team than LAFC. Doesn't mean they're going to finish better than LAFC, but on paper, I think their roster is better. We'll see when Guillermo Barros Escaloto and Bob Bradley face off how that one goes, because that should be a fun El Trafico, which I still don't like that name, but whatever. That's where we're at.
So what would you call it?
It's just a LA Classico. You don't have to call up some stupid, catchy thing and throw a sponsor on it if you have one. It's a Classico. It's the Los Angeles Classico. It's the LA Classico.
Brought to you by the Caltrans. It's the Caltrans El Trafico.
Whatever. It's a El Trafico stupid. Anyway, Chicago 4-1 winners over Colorado. We're not going to dig too deep into this. We'll get into Colorado as we go this week. Nice win for Chicago at home. I mean, there's not a ton to dig out of this. Colorado's been bad this season. There's, Colorado, I think, I want to see how they approach this match coming in. Anthony Hudson's got 8 wins in his time with Colorado. That's not very impressive. Chicago is a better team than Colorado, and they should be winning this game this way. It did take them till the second half to break through. When they did, they busted the door down. CJ Sapong, Jordi Mihailovic, Alexander Katai, all goals in the second half. Gaetan with 2 assists. He's going to make them a better team. We talked about it when that signing went down. It just makes things a little clearer for who they are and what they can be. They've needed that number 10 for a while. Could they have gotten by with Jordi Mihailovic as the 10? Yeah, I think they could have. But now it's actually interesting because you've dropped Schweinsteiger to the back line, which you should have, and I think where he's more comfortable at this stage of his career. You're playing Dax McCarty as the 6, which is where he's most comfortable. And you're playing Jordi Mihailovic as an 8 with, fairly free will in getting forward. That's a really good role for the young guy. He wants to work hard. He's going to cover the ground. That part's fine, but it doesn't take away from what he gives you in the attacking half of the field. So that's a good shout. I like that from Veljko Paunovic. This team, as they round into form, keep an eye on them. Gaetan, 2 assists. CJ Sapong, he keeps getting some goals. Nemanja Nikolic, we know what he can do in the 18 with service. And if they can get anything defensively, if it's Usted in goal, okay. And if it's this back line with Kappelhoff, with Marcelo, with Schweinsteiger, okay. Let's keep an eye on the fire.
No, and I think that I was looking forward to seeing what Gaetan would bring to the table and see how he would mix well with these pieces. And so, once again, Katai, Sapong, McCarty, Mihailovic, Gaetan, Nikolic. There's something there. Now, the biggest thing is, all right, take advantage of what you've got with that 6 or 7 guys. And, all right, you've got a good start against a very bad Colorado team. But, all right, when these guys continue to work together, how does this continue to evolve? And I think that's for me what I'm looking forward to with those 6 guys. How did that 6 evolve with time under their belt?
Last one we'll get into before the first break. Philadelphia 3-0 over Montreal. The big story coming out of this is Andre Blake leaving after 54 minutes with an injury. That's a huge issue potentially for Philadelphia. We'll see how long he is out. Matt Freese came in. Pretty cool tweet. I retweeted it last night. Freese is a local guy who has supported this team as a kid, and now he's playing for the team and making his debut. Very cool story there. Efficiency from the Union, and 4 shots, 3 on target, 3 goals. That's it. So I guess that's a good thing. Bedoya,
Corey Burke,
Montero, Corey Burke with goals. What was Corey Burke thinking?
He was the one who had the one shot that wasn't efficient.
Yeah, he'll be okay. Montreal is really missing Nacho Piatti. They've done pretty well without him. They'd been picking up results. The defense had been great. This is where the wheels kind of came off. But you did only concede 4 shots. That's not the worst thing in the world. Montreal they've got to get Nacho back. They're they're not what they can be without him. Harry Navilo, Okwanko, Aruti. It's just there's not a lot there without Nacho pulling the strings. So get well soon, Nacho Piatti. If you're a Montreal Impact fan, it's not good at the moment. Not scoring very much. Let's take a break here. If you have thoughts on the weekend in MLS, please share them with us on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, the Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Let's get into the rest of the MLS recap from the weekend on SDH. We're up to Orlando 1-0 over Vancouver. Nani scores on a deflection in the 88th minute. And full credit to Vancouver here. They had the really tough week in that they beat LAFC on Wednesday, then fly across the country to play Orlando.
Yeah,
That's a pretty good battle to keep it scoreless that late. Credit to the Whitecaps. I did not expect them to play this tight. I didn't expect this type of result from them at all.
And Crépeau had started the match in Vancouver. Zach McMath got the 90 minutes for Vancouver on the quick turn. And, you know, in the time that I've looked at Vancouver, I've wanted to see what Inbaum, once he gets comfortable in MLS, what he's capable of, and I've enjoyed his play at spots. And, you know, when you've got Tybert, Montero, Reyna, I still think that Marc Dos Santos is still trying to figure out what he's doing and how he wants things to lay out. But no, I mean, after you play midweek, basically you fly Thursday, maybe something light on Friday, and then you're out there, you know, on the weekend. So it was, that is a rough turn for Vancouver. But the fact that you held on until the 88th when Orlando had 16 shots and a boatload of crosses that didn't get a goal on the board until very late. You know, I tip my hat to Vancouver for surviving as long as they did.
Yeah, one number that jumps out to you when you look at the box score for Orlando is no shots for Dom Dwyer. He's not been having a great 2019 so far.
Nope. No. And you can see the frustration that he has when you're watching Orlando. And you know, I want to see what James O'Connor continues to do to try to get some offense generated with Mueller, Dwyer, Nani, and you know, whoever else he wants to put out there. But I know that everybody still has a lot more questions about Orlando And a lot of folks in the Southeast are really sitting there saying, no, I don't have any questions. I just want Orlando to do their thing. But yeah, Orlando, to me, still has a lot of problems under James O'Connor.
Did any questions get answered about Portland? They get their first win of the season, 3-1 in Columbus, had a 2-0 lead. Pedro Santos pulled one back for Columbus, and then Portland put it away in stoppage time. Are the Timbers okay? Still working on things?
I still think they're still working on things. And this was one where they got it figured out, and all right, you did this. And, you had a Bobasi out there who got one on the board. Diego Valeri put in 76. And so there were a lot of folks who put shots, who were putting shots out there. So I'm looking at this as a one-off that you can build on. And I want to see where, Giovanni Savarese builds from this effort against a traditionally tough Columbus team.
Yeah, they still need center back. They still need forward. They have to get these things done. I don't think they're going to get them done before this window closes. Brian Fernandez from Necaxa, the rumors keep going. Doesn't look like it's going to happen before this window closes. And I'd be shocked, based on where Necaxa is and you have playoffs coming up, that they would let him go at this stage. I don't see it. I don't think it's happening until the next window opens. And in center back, we haven't heard any specific rumors, but something's got to happen there. They've got to upgrade those two positions, or they won't be back to MLS Cup final. They just don't have enough talent in those spots. They haven't replaced Armenteros, Adi from last year up top. They haven't replaced Liam Ridgewell effectively in the back. They're not good enough right now to be where they were last year. Red Bulls aren't good enough to be where they were last year either. Loss in New England, 1-0. It was not a pretty match. New England, it was not a pretty win for them, but it's a win. And they haven't had many of those. Christian Pania coming off the bench gets the goal. New York, just what's happening for the Red Bulls? Other than the Thierry Henry rumors, which the club did release a statement yesterday saying that they are not true.
One sentence. That was it. It's like, nope. They should have just said that. They should have just said, Thierry Henry. Nope. That would have been, right there with it. So, all right, so no Thierry Henry. And yeah, and so they did it in the form of a sentence, and that was basically it. So
recent reports of Thierry Henry joining the New York Red Bulls are false. That is the
one
statement
sentence
from Dennis Hamlet.
Yep. Just nope. And all right, so you had a rough time in New England, and you look at the Red Bulls and you're going, all right, this is not what I expected. How do you dig yourself out? And that's what I'm looking at. How do you dig yourself out of this stuff?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is for the Red Bulls at this point. Pretty much same back line, guys who know the system. Kamar Lawrence has not been playing on a regular basis this year. There's questions there. Up top, it's Bradley Wright Phillips, same as it ever was. Midfield, you've got a lot of the same pieces except for Tyler Adams. And you don't have a like-for-like replacement for Tyler Adams. You have Christian Caceres, who was talked about as that replacement at one point. He hasn't really cut it. You've seen Sean Davis and Mark Szatkowski play in that role. Neither one is the Tyler Adams type. You have the whole Gaku stuff, which who knows what's going to happen with all that in the long run. This does not feel like a defending Supporter Shield winner. Just like Atlanta doesn't feel like a defending MLS Cup winner. Just like Portland doesn't feel like a defending Western Conference champion. It's a weird season in Major League Soccer right now.
Yeah, I mean, if I had told you that in the standings in the East, grouped together, you would have had Atlanta United, Red Bulls, New England, and NYCFC. If I had said that those four teams were grouped together, what would you have said?
What is Atlanta and the Red Bulls doing there? NYC, we knew as long as they were waiting to replace Villa that they would have problems. They have now, and we'll get into that. But the other two, there's surprised with them being that low. I mean, both had questions with big replacements. Tyler Adams, Miguel Almiron gone are both huge losses for what that team did in 2018. Neither club has really replaced it or rearranged to replace it. And it's something that both clubs have to figure out going forward.
Well, and I mean, for me, if not knowing what the standings were, if you were on Mars and I told you that 3 of those 4 teams were grouped together, you'd sit there and say, yeah, man, New England's having a fantastic year. They're doing great. But right now,
I had enough questions
those 4
about
teams.
NYC that I didn't know where they would be at this point.
Right.
So they were the ones that you could see go either way in that, just because you lose Villa, you lost all your goal scoring, and it was who's replacing him, and we didn't know. So they're the ones that were kind of the wild card that could admit that that's at the bottom or at the top. I would have leaned towards the bottom with not getting Bear into the team really until this weekend.
So when do you want to get into all right, so what's the next one on the board?
The Earthquakes with a huge dominant performance over Sporting Kansas City, a very unexpected dominant performance. 4-1.
Trooper's a fan of Almeida.
Quakes. Well, yeah, everybody is. 4-0. San Jose jumps out to the lead. They give up one on a penalty to Felipe Gutierrez. Danny Houston with a couple goals in the first 12 minutes. Masterful performance. And Kansas City has a big issue with Matt Beasler leaving the match injured. They had a big issue with Christian Nemeth hitting a penalty that still hasn't landed yet. And
that was a tremendous airmail.
Yeah. Kansas City is feeling the CONCACAF hangover right now, and it's showing a little bit. So that's another team that you wouldn't expect to be struggling at this point. You wouldn't expect them to go to San Jose, who's had their struggles this year, and drop a 4-1 result. San Jose is that kind of team right now that they're trying to figure out a system that is very, very different. And when it clicks, it's so different that teams who play them are like, what? Huh? This doesn't make any sense. And you can have these types of results, but you can also have these results the other way when it doesn't click with San Jose on the other end of a 4-1. They are so all over the place right now. It's not exactly unexpected, but that's where San Jose is at the moment. And also about the Quakes, at this point, I just want Chris Wondolowski to break the record, just so that's not hanging over his head anymore. Just get the goals, break the record. Come on. Come on, Chris.
I was going to ask what you thought about Almeida and his man marking, because you said, I mean, when it clicks, it's fun to watch. But since we're kind of at the quarter pole or getting close, I just wanted to know what you thought specifically about what Almeida is bringing to the table to try to turn things around in San Jose.
Almeida has a philosophy that he's going to have this team play in, whether he's got the pieces to play in it or not right now, because he's trying to build something for the long haul, and he doesn't have all the pieces he needs at the moment. This was not a well-thought-out roster that was put together last year, and you had a lot of guys signed to multi-year deals. So Almeida is pushing these guys. It's something that it's not all that uncommon. I don't know. Maybe it's uncommon with American soccer, but
yeah,
when you have a manager come in, that's who's in charge, and they set the tone for how the game is going to be played. And yeah, Matias Almeida and the way he wants to play is 180 degrees away from how Michael Starry had this team playing early last year. It's as different as you can be, and guys have to buy in, or they're going to be finding another job. That's how it works. You see managerial changes, and sometimes you see managerial changes with this type of intent. And the intent for the Earthquakes is to have an identity, because they really haven't had one. I mean, even the Dominic Kinnear glory days, Frank Yallop glory days of San Jose, it wasn't like anything in a huge tactical, like, wow, okay, this is when I turn this team on, I don't need to know who they are. That's San Jose. I can tell by the way they're playing. Now you're going to have that. That can make things a lot easier for you if you stay true to it. And that's going to be the question going forward is, okay, when and if Almeida moves on, because it'll happen. Somebody will come in calling for him, or things won't work and he'll move on. Do you then trash the philosophy? Or do you make tweaks and do you keep a philosophy and an identity? And that's the challenge for clubs in the modern game, is staying true to who you are. We've seen it at Ajax right now, and we'll talk about that as we go, as we get closer to Champions League semifinals, is Ajax got away from their philosophy in the 2000s. They were doing things that their club had never done, and they brought it back together and brought back what Ajax is all about. It paid off with 4 straight league titles with Frank de Boer, but then it's paying off even more now because the academy side has been fully activated again. And that started back in those days. Johan Cruyff kind of engineered a changing of the guard at Ajax, and now the work of a guy like Wim Jonk, who played on the Dutch national team, all-time great for the Netherlands. He went into the academy and just got his feet dirty and got stuck into the academy and getting it back to where it needed to be. The players who have come through now, so many of them came through because of that. Can San Jose create their version of that? Yeah. Red Bulls have done that. They have their version of who they are. San Jose is trying to do that with Almeida. So you can't judge things on 6-7 games. That's the problem here, is you can't judge something like what San Jose is doing on 6-7 games.
No.
That's not what it's about. It's about, honestly, 6-7 years. That's what you're trying to get to. Even if Almeida's not the one pulling the strings in 6-7 years, it's getting to where what you do today gives your club an identity, a touchstone going forward. It's going to give you a better chance to be successful down the road. The 2 results from Sunday, NYCFC 2-0 over DC United. DC looked bad. And NYC,
yes,
now that they do have a striker in Abear, they make sense now. He's good. He had a nice goal, very nice goal. Mitricha makes a lot more sense now that he has somebody to play off of. You're not doing the false 9 stuff as much. Abear is a number 9. Everything kind of flows around him now. NYC will look better going forward. LAFC 4-1 over Seattle. Surprised Seattle was so poor. Not as surprised when you realize that Chad Marshall wasn't in the team.
Right.
Not as surprised when you see Roman Torres take a nap at the top of the 18 instead of make a tackle or stand a guy up. Or I don't know. He posed for a picture. It was bizarre. He's past it. It's got to be Marshall and Kim Keehee going forward for Seattle. My concern about Seattle, as good as they've been this year, has been that age on the back line. And if you start to have issues, I think Torres has shown he's not a starter in this league anymore.
Yeah.
If Marshall's having issues, you're going to have a lot of problems if you're Seattle, because you're not good enough in the rest of the field to do that. You don't have that pit bull in Alonso anymore. You're going to have a Gustav Svensson be more to protect that back line. You're going to have to sacrifice a little bit going forward if Svensson, if Christian Roldan have to sit and protect a weak center back pair. Chad Marshall is one of the most important players in the league, because if he's not there, Seattle's a mess.
And we saw them be that mess against an LAFC team that is more than happy to launch at any given opportunity. I don't think there's a shot that they don't like to take if it's out there. But we've seen with Carlos Vela, obviously leader in the clubhouse right now when it comes to MVP. He adds 2 more. Christian Ramirez gets one. Atuesta gets one. But, I mean, and I think that it was Jonathan Tannenwald that made this point. He said, as fun as LAFC is to watch, I'm gravitating more toward how bad defensively Seattle was. And
they're missing Chad Marshall, and then on the other side too, you don't have Raul Ruiz-Diaz, you don't have Will Bruin. That's a tough one for Seattle.
Yep.
But defensively, look, Chad Marshall is the guy. He is the man for the Sounders, and if he's not in that team, Leerdam's been a regular starter. Smith has been a regular starter. You need to figure out what you're going to do with Smith and Nuhu Tolo, because you nearly sold Tolo in the offseason. You didn't. Kim Keehee, starter. You replaced Marshall with Torres, and it showed. When Marshall's not there, this is not the same team. And, you know, we talk about Houston and their frailty at times with injuries. I think Seattle, injuries on the back line, this is what happens. Now, what's going to be curious is what's the status of Chad Marshall for next week, because LAFC goes to Seattle. Can Seattle handle getting shellacked again by LAFC? Is that going to mess this team up emotionally going forward? I'm intrigued by this rematch next week. LAFC is playing with a ton of confidence right now. They've got nothing to lose. They should go in and be as attack-minded as possible in Seattle. And if you lose it, you're on the road. It happens. If you win it, you could break a team. You could just absolutely break a team. LAFC is the team that you can't let get going in a match. When they start flying, when they get out on the front foot, they're very hard to slow down. We talk about the importance of the first goal. You can't let LAFC score first. You cannot, because if you do, it's going to be 2 or 3 flying past you.
And I think we've also, we're seeing how important Mark Anthony Kaye is to that starting 11 too.
Mark Anthony Kaye has turned into a player we didn't expect. He was a winger in USL with Louisville City. He was playing as the de facto 6, even though Bob Bradley says he doesn't play with a 6. Kaye was that guy last year. When he went out, you saw the team start to struggle. I think Kaye is a big part of it. I think it's even better this year, though, with Edward Atuesta, who took a little bit of time to kind of settle. He came in last year and just didn't really show as well as we expected. A lot of people thought he was just going to be that kind of holdover until Andre Horta was ready to go. Horta just hasn't been anything. And Atuesta sitting deeper, not a lot deeper, because, it's semantics about Bradley not playing with a 6. He plays with a central midfielder that's a little deeper than the others. And what that does is it gives Kaye and Blessing freedom to go chase and go hunt. And Mark Anthony Kaye, with his reading of the game, his athleticism, he just seems to pop up everywhere, whether it's in the attack or defensively, breaking up passes, splitting lines with passes. Mark Anthony Kaye is a massive box-to-box player right now, and didn't see it coming because he hadn't shown those things at Louisville City. Sometimes position change, sometimes scenery change, sometimes the right manager can bring something out of you. But I think Mark Anthony Kaye is one of those guys to show that thinking of positions in a very rigid way, you can miss out sometimes. Kaye would have never played in this role probably for anybody other than Bob Bradley, who saw it, who gave him the opportunity, and he's fit it, and he's learned, and now he's had a year in the system playing in the middle, and it's showing. And he's even more free now. I think that's helping him a lot. Let's take a break. Let's get into any questions you guys have on a Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show right after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. He Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, April 23rd. For those of you who didn't have a chance to join us last night at Rerod Midtown Atlanta or listen on the SDH app, the show's up. Hopefully it made some sense, not actually seeing what's going on. I mean, there weren't visual tricks or anything. It was just a live show at a bar. It was kind of loud. Nick Alifi said reckless things about James Rodriguez and nearly started a brawl, but it was okay. Everybody calm down. Nick. Anyway, the important thing of why we were there and what we did is Soccer in the Streets has a fundraiser on Sunday, the ATL Nations Cup. It's at Grady High School. You can come out and check out the action. You have lots of people who are playing, representing different countries, and raising money for the organization and for Metro Atlanta youth programs. And these are programs for kids who don't generally have access to play in organized soccer programs. Whether it's due to cost, whether it's due to location, there's a ton of different reasons that go into it. But Soccer in the Streets provides programs for kids who need them. And these types of events are critical to provide these programs. And last night's event at RERA raised over $1,000 for this event, the ATL Nations Cup. And the ATL Nations Cup as a whole has raised nearly $40,000, and it's not done yet. So that's significant. I mean, those are the types of numbers from my experience being the chief development officer over at Soccer in the Streets a few years ago. The budgets have changed a little bit. The numbers are a little different, but that type of money just roughly will provide year-round programming, 2 seasons plus summer, plus pickup activities, couple training sessions a week, games, uniforms, equipment, all the things you need for 2.5, 3 sites of league play, small league play, in-house league play, but league play. And we talk about growing the game. This is the type of thing that grows the game because it's an area where there isn't soccer. By the West End MARTA station, for example, where 2 fields were built recently in a partnership with the Atlanta United Foundation, with the Arthur Blank Foundation, with MARTA, with the City of Atlanta. So many different agencies came together to make those fields happen. You didn't have soccer fields, period. If you were a kid who was born in that area and you went to school in that area and you grew up in that area, you didn't have a soccer program down the street. It didn't exist. So if you did find soccer, whether you played it at school one day or you watched it on TV or you played a FIFA video game, and you're like, I want to do that, you would have to drive. I mean, you're probably talking
Midtown.
Yeah, like 10 miles or so, but we know Atlanta traffic. That's an hour.
Yeah.
And your parents might not be able to take you. That's the type of stuff that Soccer in the Streets tries to bridge the gap and make the game accessible, not just in terms of cost, but in terms of just being in your neighborhood. So it was a lot of fun to be part of it. We couldn't do this type of stuff without, one, obviously the support of the organization. Jessica Sharman, who's one of the Queens of the South on the Unrelegated podcast. Jess is one of the key people over at Soccer in the Streets who helps, really make those links in the community to create these types of partnerships. Jay and Kelly were both there from Unrelegated. Nick. We had a lot of people who were playing in the event.
Siempre.
Mike Conti dropped in. Siempre United dropped in. A lot of listeners dropped by. It was a lot of fun. And this type of stuff we will be doing more of, both in the way of doing some live shows, because that's a lot of fun, but also trying to use the platform for good, because soccer's in an interesting spot here in the United States and in the world right now. And it's a game that I think has given all of us and on all you guys who listen, I'm sure it's rewarded your life in one form or fashion. And I take that as a challenge in a lot of ways to give back to the game and use the game to give back to others. And it's an important thing to be able to do. And I'm glad that we're able to do this, and we want to do more. So stay tuned, and thanks to everybody who came out. Thanks to everybody who listened live. There were a lot of people listening live. There were a lot of people who bought raffle tickets listening live who couldn't make it down, who won stuff, which is very cool. It was a good time, and it was an event that, had a chance to talk to Jess a little bit afterwards, and she was blown away by how successful it was. Back when we were before Atlanta United started, and we were doing viewing parties at local bars, and we'd do raffles and stuff, World Cup final type of days, this was raising that kind of money, like a World Cup final packed bar kind of day. And this was a Monday night with no viewing party, just us yakking about soccer. And, you guys responded to it. So thank you very much. Most importantly, the kids are going to benefit from all of it. And that's what's important here. It's a lot of fun. We'll be doing more of this stuff. Don't you worry.
It was fun to go out there and face the blind inquisition that we had set up, where if you donated, you put any question in the jar, and it was basically stand and deliver for anybody who was on the dais. And there was some fun questions and some fun discussion, and some things that folks need to think about these days. I mean, we talked about the NWSL, we talked about the Women's World Cup, we talked about marketing for those kinds of things. We talked about Atlanta United and starting 11s, and who would you see and who would you swap. So those kinds of things from an incredibly intelligent and thoughtful audience made it even more fun when you had to think quickly, and Kelly kept stealing my answers.
That's what you always say.
It's true.
You always say everybody steals your answers or steals your
because
prediction.
Everybody goes before me.
That's why I let you go first on the predictions, because you'd be upset if somebody said your score.
No, I wouldn't.
Yes, you would. You have before. You just got that mad because Kelly stole your answer.
And I mean, just because I'm going to say 2-1 to try to work my way back up the standings and be very Jose Mourinho-esque.
Is that what we want? Do we want to be Jose Mourinho-esque at this point?
Hey, I've won back-to-back trophies. I'm going to do whatever it takes for me to continue to have my trophiness.
Well, in a prediction thing, it's a little different. Okay, this is where, okay, yes, sure, you can be Jose Mourinho-esque. You can play the prices right and try to make sure that you don't get beaten with your
mountain
prediction
climber
of the price tag, all that type of stuff. I get it. But let's ask a Tuesday Thoughts question, and let's see what people say out there who are listening or listening later. What do you want from your team? If it's Atlanta United, I know for a lot of you it's Atlanta United. If it's the U.S. men's national team, if it's the U.S. women's national team, if it's the North Carolina Courage, whoever, if it's your team in Europe, whatever. What do you want from your team in these regards? We talked about identity and philosophy when it came to San Jose, and they're trying to find that. And we know what New York's is. What are you looking for? Is it win at all costs? Is it just win, baby? That's all? I don't care how. I don't care if it's one shot on goal, one goal, you win 1-0.
Must go down hard.
Is it the Jose Mourinho style where it is we don't want the ball because if you have the ball, you can make more mistakes? Is it Pep Guardiola? You know, we want the ball. We're going to play to do this. We're also going to look at what the opponent's going to give you, and we're going to adjust to that. Is it Johan Cruyff, who said that? I mean, I was watching an interview with Wim Jonk and Jordi Cruyff, Johan's son, who are both involved with the Johan Cruyff Foundation, who does excellent work around the world. But Jordi said that he asked his father, many times, and he always expected his father's answer to change, like as he got older, and it never did. Would you, in 1974 with the Netherlands, would you trade all of the plaudits for the way that team played to win the World Cup? And Johan Cruyff said no, and he always told his son no. And every interview he said no. He valued the style even more than the result. He said you have to play the right way, and if you win playing the right way, even better. But you have to play the right way. Where do you guys stand on this? Because this is an interesting philosophical discussion, because you see managers who have different approaches. You have managers from the Johan Cruyff tree, the Johan Cruyff coaching tree. We talk about coaching trees a lot here, and coaching trees are a thing around the world as well. You have managers who have been inspired by Cruyff and look at things differently and take different elements of it. Louis van Gaal was seen in a lot of ways as a Cruyff disciple, but then he kind of became an opponent to Cruyff in a lot of ways because of the way that he interpreted some of the things that both of them had learned together. Frank de Boer played for Cruyff. He played for Van Gaal. He worked for Cruyff at Ajax when Cruyff was running the board. He has his interpretations of it. Pep Guardiola played for Cruyff, played for Van Gaal. He has interpretations. He kind of took a little bit of both. He also mixed in some Marcelo Bielsa into it. That's the thing about soccer that I love, is that there's not a one way to play. There's not just you play this way, everybody plays this way, and that's it. There are so many different ways to interpret the game, to feel about the game, to look at it. I'd love to know what you guys want for your team. In a vacuum, you have everything that you need. Do you care how you play? Do you just want to win? Do you want to find the balance between the two? Is that important? I mean, obviously, I think we all would want to play good soccer and win. We know that. Or is the style important? Is the way you play, is the attacking, entertaining soccer, is that what you have to have? And results, hey, I want them, but I got to have something entertaining. I'd love to hear responses on this. So think about it, whether you're listening live or later. Please tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. I'd love to see where this conversation goes, because it's something that happens in Argentina between, the leading coaches of Argentine soccer history. You have debates about, is it winning? Is it style? Is it one or the other? Can you have both? No, you can't have both. Yes, you can have both. It happens in every country in the world who talks about this game. I'd love to know what the thoughts are here, because I don't think it really gets talked about a lot in the United States. We're going to see what Joe Patrick thinks about it. He's going to join us on the other side of the break. We're also going to talk more Atlanta United and what happened over the weekend and what we expect to happen against Colorado coming up this weekend. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here. It's Tuesday Thoughts. We get philosophical on Tuesdays from time to time. Joe Patrick from Dirty South Soccer and 92.9 The Game joins us now. We're going to make Joe get a little philosophical. What's up, Joe?
All right.
I love getting philosophical. It's my favorite thing.
Then here's your philosophical question of the day.
Okay.
As a soccer fan, and in your case, let's talk about Spurs.
Oh, yes.
What is the most important thing for you? And this is in a vacuum. It's not right now. It's not this season. Do you care how the team plays as long as you win? Do you have to have, in your whatever playing the right way is for you, do you have to have that even above the results, or does any of that really matter to you?
So, as a Tottenham fan, winning is clearly not the end-all, be-all for me. When I started supporting Spurs, it was at the end of the 2009 season, which was really when I was starting to get into soccer, kind of towards the end of the U.S. national team's 2010 World Cup qualification. And so I kind of started following club soccer around the end of that 2009 season. It was the season when Tottenham made the run to Champions League and they won it. They got their fourth place on the last day against Man City. And so I was just attracted to the team by Gareth Bale. Like he was the guy that kind of opened my eyes. It was like, wow, this guy is awesome. He was playing a left back at the time. And it was the style. I had fun watching that team. And I think part of it was because they were kind of the underdogs. They weren't one of the big guns. And that kind of was even more exciting to me, that I could watch a team that was so attractive and fun to watch, despite them not always being the best team. There were Manchester United and those types of teams played great as well, but they were expected to win, and I just didn't find that as interesting at the time. I would say now my perspective has changed on that. Obviously, as Tottenham have gotten bigger and better, wins are now more important, and I can take it both ways in terms of winning or the style of play. But when I initially got into them, it was purely based on, I didn't really know anything about them, to be honest. I just knew they weren't Manchester United or Chelsea. So, it varies, right? It varies kind of on the stage of where you're at in your fandom, where the club is at in its road to success. But first and foremost, my thing always watching soccer is I just want to enjoy the game. I want to be able to enjoy games. I want to see goals. I want to see chances. I want to see attacks built up. I don't want to see teams being cynical, trying to foul and time waste and do all that. So, I guess that's my take on it. That's what I've always liked about soccer or enjoyed in my favorite teams. And so I'm assuming there's a parallel to Atlanta United here.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday Thoughts. That's what we do.
This is philosophical. For me, and Joe, I'll ask you first. Are you looking forward to having Gareth Bale loaned back to Spurs now?
Oh yeah, Once we got the new stadium, we can pay his, God knows what he's making, $400,000 a week or something like that. Yeah. What do you like about it, John? What takes precedent for you?
Well, okay. So full disclosure for those who don't know, when and I think, Joe, I probably got into soccer about the same time you did.
Mm-hmm.
And what I always thought, the romanticism, I guess, for me, and the idea that you could have a say in what your team was doing. And that's why I've been a member of the Swans Trust in Swansea. That's why I'm a member of the Trust at Scunthorpe. That's why I'm a member of the Dons Trust with AFC Wimbledon. And that's why I'm a member of the Pompey Trust with Portsmouth. And at the time, I had it planned out perfectly. I had one team in each division of English soccer. And then, of course, promotion and relegation got in the way. And so now I have teams playing each other and fighting for survival and things like that. So for me, it was the idea that you could invest in something at a grassroots level and see success. And so for me, I guess it's more of investment for survival. And so when I see what's going on when Portsmouth was bought by Michael Eisner, and everyone who was a part of the trust was sent a 43-page document that we had to look through and figure out whether or not Michael Eisner was worthy of buying Portsmouth. And I voted yes, even though there was no mention of bolstering the academy and any kind of youth programs or anything like that, because the club needed the cash to survive in the pyramid. So I voted yes for that. And currently the situation with the Swansea owners, Jason Levian and his cadre that includes Mindy Kaling, not investing in Swansea and basically just, paying more attention to the shiny child in DC United has me incredibly pissed off at the moment that we're just floundering in mid-table. And Jason, you and I talked about how teams, when they drop out of the Prem, it's the second season when you're out of it to determine whether or not you're going to have a chance to get back. I don't think with the level of investment or the lack of investment that Jason Levian is doing, where we've gone 2 transfer windows without getting any kind of player brought in. Sound familiar, Joe? Where you're floundering right now. And it's I completely and totally blame the president, who has since left, who was a part of our growth initially, and the owners who seem to just kind of sit there and think of this as something cute in their portfolio. So for me, it's about survival and it's about being engaged in the process. So that's what it's like for me, guys.
Well, and that's it's something I want to pick up on as well, because I think that is something that Atlanta United has really kind of integrated into their model and into the fans, is kind of the sense of ownership that the fans seem to have on the team. And that's great. It's not a negative at all. It's a total positive. It empowers the fans, right? To feel like they have actual skin in the game, even though these fans don't. John, you actually do have financial skin in the game, but
yes,
these fans and that's what makes these fans so passionate and so amazing, is that they, the club has reached out to them to get their input on how to do certain things, on how to, and a lot of it is, it's not necessarily on the field, of course, but, the fans feel like they've been part of the building process of this club. It wasn't just, a team of executive leaders who have kind of devised this thing all on their own, from their own brains. So I think that that's one of the reasons why, when things right now aren't going as well as they could be on the field, you get a bigger reaction from fans because they feel like they have ownership in the game, which, and again, when I say they feel like they do, I just mean, they technically don't have financial stake in it, but they do have a very much emotional stake in it. And
they've invested their time, they've invested dollars when it comes to tickets and being founding members and buying gear and every other ancillary aspect of it. Even though they're not a part of A and B, there has been a financial investment, and there has been an investment of their time and of their fandom in all of this.
Yeah, totally. So, I understand the frustration that a lot of them sense. And I understand, honestly, why some fans are upset when they hear people like me basically trying to say, don't worry about it. The chances were there, et cetera, basically what a lot of us have been saying over the last 48 hours or so. I understand why that's frustrating. Fortunately for me personally, I'm kind of able to untangle myself from the fandom of it when I am in my role as a journalist for the team or covering the team. But I understand it's just frustrating not to see those goals come in. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to see your favorite team currently languishing at the bottom of the table, which I don't expect to continue. But it's just it's not super pleasant right now.
Yeah, definitely that. Well, let's get into the Dallas a little bit. So
yeah,
it's almost hard to talk about because I think there's certain things that are like kind of just setting people off about shots and possession and chances and all of these things. But to me, the biggest story out of this game is you conceded early again. And that's the thing, that you can have all of the rest, but when you're conceding these early goals, you're going to have problems more often than not. And it's, to me, let me know what you think, an individual mistake on the first goal that hurts you again.
Yep, it was definitely an individual mistake. Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez cannot be leaving his feet that far away from his own goal when there's no cover behind him. It's just, it's just one of those things. But I think, again, to kind of go back and talk about this in a more broad sense, you think about earlier in the season when the team Frank DeBoer always wanted that extra man behind so that in those situations, he had another center back in there to cover. How many times do we see Miles Robinson back there able to clean up for those kinds of mistakes? Now, at that time, Atlanta had trouble then developing enough players forward to get serious attacks going. And I think that, it's just one of the trade-off. It's the trade-off, and it's the thing that I love about watching this sport is that it's very hard to be tactically perfect. And Jonathan Wilson, who wrote the book Inverting the Pyramid, which is kind of like the history of the evolution of tactics, always just kind of broadly says that the goal of a manager is to try to find the exact right balance to give you defensive solidity, combine that with creative attacking freedom. And I think that Atlanta's still searching to find that balance. They at the beginning of the season they were too defensive and they were too structured and too rigid, and they weren't able to create the chances that they needed. And now we're seeing this team create a ton of chances, but they're not able to defend as solidly as maybe DeBoer would like. I would say that, with Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez in particular, he's fascinating because he's a player who thrives playing in that style that he did, that the exact style that caused him Atlanta to concede that goal by his mistake. He plays best when he's in those do-or-die positions. And, of course, sometimes he's not going to make the play. Nobody's 100% on the field, and sometimes you give those away, and it's really unfortunate that it happened so early in the game. And I think there are some other reasons. It was an individual mistake by him, but there were some pressing issues that happened in the lead up to, I forget who he was marking at the time, but in the lead up to that pass, the pressing ahead of him was not as aggressive as it should have been.
And I'm with you, Joe, on that, but I think that's getting overplayed, and I know why. It came from Matt Doyle on Twitter, and there's a video to break it down. Look, you also have to talk about every other time that Atlanta pressed in the first half and caused a turnover, because that happened far more than you had poor pressing issues. You have to look at it as a whole. In that one, even when the press gets broken, because everybody's press gets broken at times, it does. And you can say that somebody didn't run hard enough back or this or that. At that point, you see it if you're Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez. It's all in front of you. You know what's happened, and all right, that's 8-7 guys in front of me. I don't have a lot of help behind me. I can't go to ground here. I think it's the easy thing, and that was why it was a little frustrating when I saw this pop up, is that, the press got beat because presses get beat. But when they get beat, you can't do this, and if it's a press that's beat, it's even more glaring when you make this aggressive mistake.
Yeah, so it's funny going back to Tottenham. When Mauricio Pochettino first came to Tottenham, obviously he instilled this very aggressive high press, and one thing that his central defenders, would constantly do during his first season is when they felt like they were in those positions that Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez was in, they would try to basically do the easy thing and try to step up and create an offside trap, which is really just a bailout. They didn't want to have to run 40 yards back on a sprint and try to reorganize themselves in a deeper block. And I think that that's exactly kind of what you're saying, and I think that that's right, in that he has to be able to assess those situations a little bit better and determine, the risk reward of the situation. And in that situation, even if he wins that ball, there's not a ton of reward for Atlanta United in that situation. Right. They regain possession at midfield. Big deal. The risk obviously is what we saw, which was a goal. And then to go back to the pressing, I do agree with you. I think that, what's troubling to me about the defensive issues is that I felt like the pressing did improve after that happened. I think that that was kind of a wake up call, and you don't want to see wake up calls. You don't want to have to concede a goal to kind of feel like your team is then playing the way they should be. You want to see that from the first moment of the game, and not having to go through the concession of the goal. So I agree with you. Right. I just think that was one instance where that did kind of rear its head. But I did think the press for the most part worked very well, as evidenced by Atlanta's possession.
Yeah, not even so much the possession. Yeah, it was definitely it's affected by it, but I think for me, it's even more the lack of passes completed from Dallas, which affects their possession. But
70%, I think, something like that.
Yeah, you saw so many turnovers from Dallas doing what they do, trying to build out of the back, and they did that for the first half. Now, Luchi Gonzalez made a change in that in the second half, and he just got more direct because that's where the game was at that point. But what was your reaction when you saw Dallas's shape coming out? Because they had not played in anything resembling three center backs all season long. It had been a version of the 4-3-3 in every match for Luchi Gonzalez, and it had been a team that dominated possession in pretty much every game. And they came in here and couldn't dominate possession, played in a different shape, but got the result and were in control of the match for a good bit of it.
Yeah, I think that is the blueprint now here. I think teams are going to continue to come in here, and they'll come out, and for the first 20 minutes, they'll press and play aggressive and try to get on the front foot and even try to get a goal to open it, of course. But then teams are going to sit back in a structured way and hope that Atlanta can't break them down, and hope that they can then those will be their best chances. In the attack is to hit Atlanta on the counter when Atlanta's pouring guys forward. I wasn't surprised in a sense to see it like that. The formation change was a bit of a surprise. And Luchi Gonzalez, did say that it was something specifically designed for this game against Atlanta in areas. I know that he said that they wanted to exploit the space behind Breck Shea was a key for them, and they were able to do that. I think that was the second goal came down their right side. In fact, both goals kind of came down that side, didn't they? But yeah, I think that that's what Atlanta is going to see more of going forward. And to be honest, I think that the team is equipped to deal with it. It's not like Dallas, they didn't outplay Atlanta. Atlanta, like I said after the game, I know which team I would rather be in a vacuum without seeing the score, just based on all of the data that was collected from the game, the chances, beyond possession. I'm not talking about that, but I'm just talking about the quality of the chances for either team. Who's going to win that game more often than not. Frank de Boer said it was 28 out of 30. I don't know. We can, that's kind of weird, but you're going to win that game much more often than not. Unfortunately, things just didn't break for Atlanta.
Yeah, the 28's exaggerated in my opinion, but yes,
it was really funny to me how he said. It was very funny to me how he was oddly specific about that number. And then he even clarified 28, you win 28 times and you have one draw and one loss.
Yeah, I thought
Thanks, Frank.
That was interesting. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
No, it's just, and then when you look at things offensively and you see how Ezequiel Barco is, his form recently, I think, is where everybody's sitting there going, yeah, that's the guy that we were looking for. And then when PT Martinez came in late and you saw flashes of what PT has done in South America. I just wanted to get your take on, even though there wasn't anything short of the PK that went in the net, just the continuing week by week progression of PT as he gets closer to 90 and Barco, who I think is your 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really underscores the difficulty it is to change leagues with both of these players. I think that, we talk about it, the adjustment period, et cetera, et cetera. I think fans who have been following European soccer for a little bit longer will kind of understand a little bit better because they've experienced it. The way that when you sign a big player, this happens with players who get signed for 40 million pounds or euros or whatever. They come over and they're at their best. They're not at their peak when they come over. And Frank de Boer talked about it last week. He said, when you come to a new team, you're almost never at your peak. It requires, it's almost hard to say out loud what it is that makes a player feel comfortable and start to feel like the kind of player that we've seen Ezequiel Barco turn into from last year to this year. He's just a completely different player. Has he technically improved? Maybe a little, maybe in some areas, but in general, that's not what it's down to. It's down to his personal confidence, his personal feeling of influence over the team. So, I think it'll be interesting to see how Petit progresses. I thought it was really great to see what he was able to give Atlanta in that game in such a short time. I mean, he looked like he's ready to perform in the first team starting matches, which obviously he will be expected to do. I'm not trying to say that we should downplay him like that, but I think it's what we saw from him against Dallas gives me a lot of optimism that he'll be able to settle in and adapt to this league pretty quickly, quicker than a guy like Barco, who was a teenager when he came over. Pitti is in the middle of his career, and I think that will help him in the adaptation. But it's actually something I'm looking into doing a story. I don't know what outlet it will be for, but I want to kind of dig deeper into the kinds of things that Atlanta United does specifically to help these players. I know you guys have talked to Bobby Blair.
Bobby Blair, yeah.
Yeah, who is part of this process, and there's other people on the team as well who kind of help these players settle in and adapt. And it's especially important for Atlanta United, who clearly wants to continue to bring in players from these foreign markets.
So that leads us into my question for you to pimp all of your work, because you are popping up in every outlet imaginable right now. Where can we read Joe Patrick words this week?
I'll have more coming at MLSsoccer.com. Had a few pieces run there last week, and I will have some more this week. We'll be talking about PT and Barco, and I think there's some questions as to how those players will perform in the team at the same time, and whether those two players plus Joseph Martinez plus Tito Villalba can those guys all play together in the same 11? Hopefully we'll be able to dig into that a little bit this week. Had something posted on Dirty South Soccer this morning about just the players' reaction to the game and just the unfortunate way that the goals never came for them. But I think that they're all feeling confident that they will eventually. And then if you're a Braves fan, you can catch me on 92.9 The Game, covering the Braves, and they'll be back home this weekend.
All of the things for our friend Joe Patrick. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks for making the time this morning.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. And sorry for missing you last week.
Oh, dude, no problem at all. Let's take a break here.
Yeah.
We'll come back, and we'll get deeper into a Tuesday Thoughts philosophical discussion right after this.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down here, April 23rd. Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you. Make sure you're following J.A. Patrick 200 on Twitter to keep up with everything that Joe's doing.
That's how many different identities and places he's at. 200.
Yes, both soccer and baseball. Joe Patrick does it all. Keep up with everything he's doing. He's putting out a ton of just great content right now. Before we get into some of the philosophical conversation and some of your responses on Twitter, first, thanks for responding. I'd love to see where this conversation can go. I think another aspect that fits into it is the academy, and is something that Trains mentioned and shared a post with Tony Annan speaking at the Generation Adidas Cup. I have not had a chance to see that video yet, so I can't speak on that video just yet. I can't speak on some of the things that were said or alluded to or whatever in that video. Trains asked a question about, is Atlanta one of the leaders in the academy game right now? And I think they are. I think it's really unfair to expect Atlanta to be ahead of a Dallas, who Dallas took a while to get it right, but Oscar Pareja came in as their academy director quite a while ago. And then they still had issues really until the end of the Pareja era as the first team manager, and now Luchi Gonzalez. And they also have a different situation. They're not going to spend on guys like an Atlanta United is. So that's general in terms of, one, what are you judging academy success on? Is it creating professionals, or is it creating professionals in your team? Because there are great academies that don't create a number of professionals for that team, because they also do go out into the market and hire other players. So is that part of the philosophy to you? That is very important. Do you want to see homegrown talents on the field at the expense of big investments? This was a big part of the Ajax issue that we talked about earlier. Ajax in the late 2000s, Ajax has been just where the Dutch game is for decades. They don't have the money of Spain, Germany, England, France. They just don't have that kind of money to spend. So they have to develop their own talent. 1995, Ajax won the Champions League. Since then, it's been, developing some talent here, moving it on, whatever. They went through a spell in the 2000s where they got away from developing talent. They weren't investing in the academy the way they were, and they were going out and signing players and spending pretty good money on it. Probably more than they should have, more than they had. They lost who they were. For them, their identity, and a huge part of it, was developing talent from within. And they doubled down on that. It's paying off for them now. Can every club be that? No. Does every club want to be that? No. Chelsea does not want to be that. Chelsea invests in the academy. They do a lot of work on the youth side, but they don't really care if the player is from the Chelsea academy or if they bought him for $80 million. They want the best player, period. Chelsea's kind of that just win, baby, win at all costs, whatever it takes. Manchester United used to be a club, the class of 92, that prided itself on developing talent from within. They don't really do that at any large scale anymore. Manchester City would like to be able to do both. We'll see if Foden is kind of the start of that. It's a hard place to be able to do both. We'll see if they can pull it off. Does that part affect your identity question and what you want out of a club? Because for some it does. For some, that's a huge part of a club's identity. For others, not so much. So I'd love to hear that as we mix that in as well. For me, I think it's hard to judge Atlanta's academy so soon. I think if you compare them to Minnesota, to LAFC, to NYCFC, to Orlando, Atlanta United's academy has passed all of the academies in recent years that it came into the league with. They came in with a good partnership with Georgia United. They came in and they built a lot of bridges between the top clubs in the metro Atlanta area. They're bringing in talent as well. That's a pretty good start, but it's going to take a lot of time for it to be a Dallas who has, I think, 25 homegrown players signed in Dallas history. It's a ton, and you want to go back to some of the complaints on Dallas, and John, we've talked about it for quite a while. They would sign a guy to a homegrown deal, but then they would stagnate because there was nowhere for them to play, either in the first team or without a USL affiliate. Right. They just kind of stuck and didn't do anything, and then some of those guys didn't get re-signed. LA Galaxy produced a bunch of players, and they let all of them go because they didn't make that next jump. Developing players is not an exact science. It never will be. It's a very challenging prospect, and some clubs value it more than others.
Yep. And, once again, you look at what Atlanta United has been able to do, and I think you can make a statement about how it's evolving and growing. I don't think you can make a definitive statement in comparison to those who've had decades more of a run in trying to do the same things. So to your point, it's been a good start, but the momentum that you've gathered, the personnel that you've been able to bring in and grow, what we're seeing with Atlanta United 2 in its second year, and the growth from the players who were there in the first year. We can go back to the Miles Robinson example. Those kind of players who've made their way to the first team. So it is a work in progress, and some works take longer than others, but comparing it to its contemporaries, you're off to a good start.
Yeah, and the other thing about academy stuff, like it's very dangerous to judge an academy on one player or on two players. It's not easy to say that player's a great 15-year-old or 16-year-old. They're going to be a great professional no matter what. No.
Don't know that.
It doesn't happen that way always. And in that player, sometimes at 16 that you're like, I don't even know if I want to keep this player in my academy, let alone they're never going to be a professional. They turn out to be the one that surprises you. It's not something you can judge on isolated basis. It's something that does take, honestly, decades, I think, to truly judge. I think the investment is there. I think the intent is there, and we'll see if the long-term quality is there, because that's what you're looking for in the long term. But I'd be curious too, as that's part of it. Atlanta's in an interesting situation because they have invested heavily in the academy. I'd say, I don't know numbers. Philadelphia said $3.5 million a year, and that was either the most or among the most in the country. Let's say $4 million is the largest anybody's invested in the academy on a yearly basis, not on an infrastructure investment. I'd say Atlanta's in the ballpark, they're not spending $500,000, so they're in that ballpark of what they're doing. But they're also going out and signing guys for large transfer fees to bring them in. So you're doing both. How important are homegrown players to what you want to see out of your club? Now, if your club's Atlanta, cool, let's talk about that. If your club's somebody else, cool, that's fine. How important is the homegrown aspect to it? For an Ajax, it's incredibly important. For an Athletic Bilbao, it's essential. For a Chivas, it's very important, but Chivas and Atletico Bilbao have made some very, difficult decisions in terms of how they build their rosters. So they're a little more limited, so they have to look at things differently. For a Chelsea, they could care less about if a player came up through Chelsea. I don't think Chelsea fans generally care one way or the other. They just want quality. So, would love to hear your thoughts on that as well. But let's get into what some of the people are tweeting at us, John. What do we have?
All right, Percy Herrera, and it's 2 thoughts. So let me give it to you a thought at a time.
Okay.
I'd like my team to openly and fairly critique players instead of making excuses.
I want to know what Percy means by my team. I don't really want players openly and critiquing one another in the media. I don't think that leads to anything good. I don't know if it's the club or the manager critiquing players, which you don't really want. That never goes over well. I've never been a fan of managers who throw players under the bus. I don't think it's a successful tactic. I think it's something that Jose Mourinho started relying on way too much as he just seemed to get very frustrated in his career. And, I mean, the antics with Paul Pogba, and hey, you can definitely have questions about Paul Pogba and consistency and all that. And there's a valid question on if Manchester United should look to sell him or keep him going forward. All that's true. Didn't help the team while Jose Mourinho was in charge to be openly at war with Paul Pogba. If Percy's talking about the media side of it, sure. I'm not making excuses. I'm not trying to make an excuse when I talk about the way the team plays. I'm just talking about the way the team plays. If you disagree, that's fine. That's completely fine, because as we say so many times when you talk about this game, go anywhere in the world. People see the game differently. I see the game through my eyes that came up through, playing locally, watching the game grow in the United States, working in professional teams, working in semi-pro and amateur teams, working on the youth side, working for a nonprofit that was built to grow the game. I have my perspective. I couldn't ask anybody to see the game in the same way I do exactly. It's unfair. I don't see the game the same way as Percy does. Percy has a different set of soccer experiences than me. We have different filters. Maybe we, liked different clubs that did different things, and that informs what we like to see as a fan. That's okay. That's completely fine. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting one. I just don't know exactly what Percy meant by my team to do that. If it's the team itself, if it's other players, manager, club statements, what have you, I think that creates more problems than it helps.
Second thought. Would love to see something exciting on the pitch. The majority of fans are casual soccer fans, and we have to be able to make the game day atmosphere sustainable.
There's a bunch of things that go into the game day atmosphere, but I think Percy's dead on in terms of Atlanta's challenge, because there is an element of being attacking and entertaining that needs to be here, in my opinion. I don't think Atlanta would embrace a Jose Mourinho defensive, reactive, win at all costs.
No.
I don't think that would be embraced here. I think if you got past the initial shock of it and he won you trophies on a regular basis, it would be grudgingly accepted. I don't know if it would be loved. And that is something that informs it here. Would that be different in LA with the Galaxy? I think it would be, because I think the Galaxy are a bit of one of those win-at-all-costs type of clubs. It's trophies, that's the expectation. Don't care how you get there, got to win it.
High-priced talent, bring them in.
Yeah, it'd be more accepted there. And there's clubs around the world that obviously it would be accepted at. I think Atlanta is a little bit different in that regard, too. I think in terms of the game day atmosphere, there are limits to what the team on the field can affect. And I'll go back to Saturday, and again, this is my opinion. This is how I feel about it. I feel like Saturday, Atlanta was set out to attack. I think they were aggressive. I think they went for the game in a lot of different ways. They conceded early, and they fought, and they created chances, and they tried to get into it. I didn't think there was anything boring about that match. that's how I felt. That was like kind of my emotional reaction to it. I've had games, and go back to the Philadelphia game last year where they had 30 shots. That felt boring because they were going up against 9 men, and Philly really didn't have anything to offer because they were just trying to batten down the hatches. I didn't feel that way about this one. It's just my feeling. Everybody has different feelings about games, for sure. Like, no, it's very rare you're going to have two people who feel the exact same way about a game in every aspect of it. So that's okay. I was a little surprised in how quiet it got after the first goal, and I think if Atlanta had been on a 3-match winning streak, that wouldn't have happened. I think there is concern. There is fear. There is a lot of fear that, and I think it's unfounded, that it's not going to work, going back to a little bit about what Percy said about sustaining the game day atmosphere. I've seen people say that, if they lose more games, then the fans are gonna disappear. I think that's a little. It's really early for that to happen. The team did just win a championship. Yes, there's been differences, but man, that's fast. I'd be surprised by that. That doesn't fit what I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm probably a little biased, but I'm also just trying to give you my opinion as straight up as I have it. I think that's a little harsh. I do think, and something that you compare the difference. I'll compare it to DC United a little bit. Now, I didn't hear everything. The fans weren't completely quiet in Atlanta, by far. That was not the case. Was it quieter than we've heard the Bens? I think it was. I think the early goal shocked people a bit. Maybe the way it was mic'd up on ESPN in D.C., it was pretty loud after D.C. conceded. And D.C. was horrendous in that match. Like, I thought D.C. was awful against NYC on the weekend. But you also have 25 years of history there. So you have different situations all the way around the country. Atlanta is a unique situation, and there are a lot of things that I think if you're not in it, if you're not from here, and that's not from here, born here, that's just being here, being part of this, you can look at this in a lot of different ways. If you're looking at it from the outside, I don't know if you have the full perspective. It's a really interesting set of scenarios that are playing out right now around Atlanta United. Obviously, winning fixes everything. And that's what I'm kind of wondering is it just flat out winning some games fixes everything, or is there a true element of they have to win a certain way, or that's not acceptable either? And that's what I can't quite tell, because I get mixed signals, so I don't know.
Sherbs with a couple of thoughts. Sherb says, I'd say winning is more important. Even soccer analysts, examples Twellman and Doyle, close parentheses, have a tough time judging the game without the results biasing it. So for most fans, it's impossible. Mourinho would have had no problems at the top of the league. Most fans are fair weather. That's segment one.
That's what's interesting, though, because I agree about Mourinho. So at Chelsea, and let's take his especially his second run at Chelsea. Came in, won the league second year. Icon. Everybody loved him. Everything was great. And man, when it turned, it turned. And now he's persona non grata at Chelsea because of the way it ended. That's how fleeting it can be, I think, if it's just winning without quality behind it. Because that was a shame, and I'm not a Jose Mourinho fan. I respect what he's done, and I think he's definitely a manager who has pushed the game forward in a lot of ways. I think he lost his way. I really do. I think the whole Real Madrid experience kind of broke him. I think not getting the Manchester United job immediately after Alex Ferguson retired really broke him.
Yep.
I think they go hand in hand, but combined, yeah. And he got really cynical and really negative and really combative. You can't take anything away from what he did at Porto. You can't take anything away from what he did at Inter Milan, what he did at Chelsea when he first went there. The quality's there. But it's this thing where he was so negative and so just antagonistic that when he went back there, was it earlier this year or was it last year when he was at Chelsea and fans were chanting some pretty horrible things at him at Stamford Bridge? That was rough, because Chelsea wasn't Chelsea before Mourinho ended up there, and there's no guarantee that they would have become Chelsea if Mourinho hadn't went there. And he took some chances going there. He had other opportunities when he won Champions League with Porto. And he took it, and he elevated that club. And because of how negative it was, and there's a lot of other things than just the style of play that factor into it with Mourinho, but the style of play does have a hand in this. He's not regarded as a club legend anymore because of it. That's harsh. I do wonder if you had that type of play here and the team was winning, like, would that be enough? I don't know. That's kind of what Sherb said and what Percy said are maybe not quite two sides of the same coin, but pretty close. It's interesting.
Yeah. Part 2 from Sherbs. I don't like people leaving early. I don't like people not cheering when the team needs it most. I don't like people going after the players and coach. All that goes away if you win. Personally, it's more interesting to watch your team attack with creativity than defend and foul. But bad fans take away from the experience so much that I'd rather just have good weather regardless of how we got there, because most fans are not capable of watching 22 shots and 70% possession as a positive if it means we got unlucky and lost.
Yeah, that's the thing that's just weird to me, is that it's become like, if you say 22 and 70, or you mention the possession word or chances created, it's and this is not new. This happened last year too. I would mention chances created, and man, it would get people going if there wasn't a goal behind it. I get it, but that's how you quantify the quality, and it's how you quantify the performance. So, like, they're real numbers. They're not imaginary. I think Barco at DC was a game, or it might have even been the whole team, where I remember, and it wasn't just one person, I don't remember who said it, I cited how many chances they created in the first half, and it was like, no, they didn't. And I'm like, yes, they did. And it's like, well, tell me what chances they created, and maybe I'll believe it. And I'm like, okay, it was this minute, it was this one, it was this one, it was this one. Like, it's there. It's part of analyzing a match. It's tough. It's a very tough situation because this team has known success, not quite from day one, but from moving into Mercedes-Benz Stadium till MLS Cup, this team has known a lot of success. And right now it's dealing with some adversity. I think it's a lot of different things. It's a perfect storm of adversity in a lot of different ways. I don't think there's one fix. I don't think there's one simple thing to flip a switch and it's over. It's tough. It happens. It's part of sports. It happens to any team that you love. I'm never going to judge fans for decisions they make. I think a lot of fans who booed would tell you that they were booing Dallas's style of play, referee, what have you. Oh, that could absolutely be true. It was a little surprising how edgy it felt. That's all. I didn't expect that. There's no obligation. There's no one way to be a fan. There's no obligation to support the team thick or thin, put on blinders, and yell and scream as loud as you can. Some people will do that, and that's great. Others will sit and criticize, and that's great. What worries me is that sometimes I think it's easy to go from that to being apathetic about it. And I don't think that's the case right now. And it definitely shouldn't be the case because, people being frustrated about the results means you care. When people don't care, that is a bad thing. I don't think anything has happened that would make people not want to care about this team right now. I mean, not after the season that just ended in 2018. there's a lot going on. There's a lot to grab onto emotionally right now. It would be really strange if that happened, and I don't think that's happening or going to happen anytime soon. And I would hope that a bad run of results wouldn't make that happen. I don't know. It's
yeah. Well, I mean,
it's
we
something
talked about
yet.
we've talked about be very good or be very bad because people are talking about you and you're still engaged in the conversation.
I completely disagree with be very bad. I think that's 100% incorrect because you get to a point where you're very bad and people are not talking about you. Like, I 100% disagree with that. Nobody's talking about the Florida Marlins, Miami Marlins. Not really anybody's talking about New England Revolution right now. I disagree. I think when you get bad, people talk about it because, it's different. When you stay bad, you just become irrelevant.
You become a punching bag and a punchline at that point.
You don't even become that because people don't care to even do that to you. People do that about teams that have fallen down. People don't care about bad teams, period. They just don't talk about it. So
and they also don't care if you're mediocre.
Sure, but they don't care if you're not winning. I think that's what we're coming around to. If you're not winning, like, caring ceases some. Now, you can't just say in a vacuum that, okay, the last place team people are talking about. They're not. But if they just fell to last place, yes, because there's a story there. If they've been bad for 10 years, the Detroit Lions, how much did the Detroit Lions get talked about in the NFL conversation?
Not much because they're mediocre.
They're bad. Cleveland Browns, when they were bad, the only reason people talked about them is because they made gimmicks about being so bad and like giving people beer if they won a game. Now, because they flipped the script, they're getting talked about. I think people get talked about on the way up, on the way down. If you stay in the same spot, people don't talk about you as much. If you're at the top, people talk about you more than if you stay at the same spot in the middle or at the bottom.
Right.
But when you're just there, people don't talk about you as much. It's the mid-table teams in the Premier League or any league in the world. They don't get talked about as much because they're just there.
Yep. And that's what you want to avoid, being just there.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's obvious. I don't think that's the situation here in any way. That's what you're getting to. That's why I do think the boring conversation, if you hadn't had the Crystal Palace run for Frank de Boer, I don't think that would be coming up. I don't. I really think that it's an easy thing to grab onto. I don't think the team was boring on Saturday. I don't think they were boring in New England. I don't think they were boring in Columbus. They didn't create chances earlier, but as we talked about with Joe, there's been some changes, some tweaks to get more numbers forward. You're creating more chances. That comes with risk. I don't think that's boring. I think the boring conversation is Crystal Palace, and I think it's also the Crystal Palace reaction was to Louis van Gaal, who was getting shellacked for his teams at Manchester United, saying that all they did was pass sideways. It's a really interesting situation, and it's fun to get into these kind of conversations that are very big and philosophical and cover just how you feel about the game and what you want in the game, because that's two different responses that are very different. You know, if it's you got to win. I want to support a winner. I'm going to be more emotionally invested in a winner. Nothing wrong with that at all.
Nope.
Or is it I've got to have a team that plays an entertaining style? And if the results aren't quite there, of course, part of an entertaining style is to win some games. We know that. You're not going to be the lovable losers for very long where you're losing every game 5-2 or 6-3, and people are going to be invested in that. It's kind of fun for a little bit, but that gets old too. But are you okay with being the fourth best team, the fifth best team, the sixth best team if you're playing an entertaining style? Or is it win, win, win? That's all I care about. We'll take a break, our final break. We'll come back. I think we've probably got a few more tweets. We'll get into that, and we'll wrap everything up on a very philosophical edition of Soccer Down Here. We'll all go sit under a tree and talk about it afterwards. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Final segment, Soccer Down here, sitting under the pear tree, I guess, and
got our
talking.
blanket out, our picnic basket ready to go.
Well, what was it that didn't the Greek philosophers meet under a tree to discuss, how they felt about things?
I think so.
Or am I completely mixing something up from school?
Well, I think what you're doing is that you're bringing in your Beverly Hills 90210 background.
What? How am I bringing that in?
Where they were at Cal U and they would just kind of go hang out at the quad.
No, I'm not bringing that in at all. No, I wasn't even thinking that. No, I think Plato or Aristotle, they would have their philosophy discussions, out under a tree and sit with the students and talk and whatever. And there's no professors here. This is just conversation about how we feel about a game that we obviously all care about. We're talking about it every day. You guys are listening to us every day because you're crazy, and we love you guys. But it's we care. We're emotionally invested, so it's fun to kind of dig in a little bit deeper as to what we care about and why we care, and how we view things. It's good. I love it. This has been a lot of fun. What are the peeps saying?
All right. Jane Ames. I just want to see a supporter culture develop in the supporter section into something more akin to the passion scene in South America and Europe, where support is always there despite results. Half the supporter section exiting after the second goal shows me we're not as dedicated as we think. # Tuesday Thoughts.
See, it's really interesting. I wasn't even thinking about this discussion in those terms. But no, I'm not. It's not wrong at all. I did not notice the numbers in the supporter section. I honestly didn't look. I did see people leaving after the second goal. 86th minute, if I remember correctly, my minute mark. 80, 84, 85, 86, somewhere in that ballpark. So a few minutes left. I think you could guess at that point that there would be significant amount of stoppage time. Yeah, you never want to see it. I get it. I don't like it. It's not ever been my fandom to leave early, and especially in a game like that. I think it's different if it's 4-0, if it's 5-0 at home, and you haven't been in the game the whole time. It feels a little different than the one that we saw on Saturday. But hey, everybody has their own way of being a fan, and there's not a group of judges out there. The East German judge is not sitting at the table grading it. it's unique in soccer fandom in the United States because the comment from Jane Ames about South America or Europe and how they support and how they're always there, we've seen that not be the case too. I don't know if that's a blanket statement that could be completely accurate, because I don't want to see Atlanta United fans throwing toilets at the police like we saw at Newell's Old Boys recently. That would be really bad. I don't think that's going to fly here at all.
I don't know if that's physically possible.
I don't know. I think the Bens might be tearing toilets off the wall and throwing them proof. I don't think they could.
Yeah, that's what I think.
That. But just the gist, because you see some things from fandom in other countries that, hey, we don't want to see, and I'm not getting into the racist comments and that type of stuff. Of course, that we all know that. But just in general, because I think sometimes you get fans, especially in South America, who will break into the team's headquarters and threaten players. I don't want to see that. I don't think that's the place of the fans. You'll see those things pop up. I do think that fans have more of an impact on a match than sometimes they think they do. And Atlanta United players have talked about it when they get that jolt of energy from this fan base in the stands. Like, it affects them. It gives them life. It gives them energy. And it's something that when things are not going the way that everybody wants, it can flip the script a little bit. I think fans, I hope they understand the power that they have in that regard. And I think that it also does send a message when they're quiet and they leave. I think players pick up on that too. It's not something that the players ever want to see or want to cause. I think Michael Parker's talked about that. You notice it. You don't want that. But I do hope that fans understand that when the match is going the other direction, they can have a positive influence on it by being loud and supportive. That actually happens. That's not just Pollyanna nonsense. Like, that's real. And that can be useful at times. I don't think that happens again if the team's on a 3-game winning streak. I don't think fans leave the way they did on Saturday. I don't think it happens if the team's been doing well. I think it is a culmination of things, and I think it's something that could continue if you don't get a run of wins. I hope the narrative changes. I think at times the narrative has been extremely harsh to the way that this team has played. And I hope that the team, through results, is able to change that.
Train says, I don't mind if Atlanta loses, but as a season ticket holder, I want to see good soccer, cool megs, awesome saves, etc. I think MLS is a league that can allow homegrown play due to salary cap.
Hold the homegrown thought. Let's go back to just the basic philosophy stuff. So,
all right,
that's another one on the side of good soccer first. And we don't know, we'll never know. If Saturday went like Dallas winning 2-1, but Dallas came to play, had 10 chances, 10 chances. Brad Kazan makes 6-7 big saves. Jesse Gonzalez does what he did. It's a back and forth, free flowing game. Would fans have left when Dallas went up 2-0? I don't know if it would have changed it. I don't know. I don't know where this fan base is in that regard. Now, I'm just curious because I don't know if a better quality match back and forth would have changed it on Saturday. Long run, I do agree. I think there is an importance on entertainment in Atlanta that might not be the case for the LA Galaxy fan base. It might not be the case for other fan bases. I think it is a component here. I do. I don't know if it trumps just winning. I can't tell. And I don't know if we'll know this for a few years, to be honest. I think it's going to take some time and some different ups and downs and dips and valleys and plateaus and all of that to see where we end up. I'm intrigued by that. I'm very intrigued to see in the long run, is one more important than the other, or do they have to go hand in hand? If you win, do you have to win with style? Is that important? I don't know. And then homegrown part on Train. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. I think MLS is a league that can allow homegrown play due to salary cap restrictions. I want the team to play more local youth.
I wonder how the fan base at large feels about that. Do you want to play local youth at the expense of bringing in high-priced international talent? Does that matter to you? For some, I think it does. For some, I think it doesn't. I don't know what the consensus is, and I don't know when we'll know that. I think Atlanta is in a different situation than a Dallas. I think they're in a different situation than the Galaxy. I think they're in a different situation than Kansas City, who's bringing through a lot of players right now. You have different financials at play. I do agree that MLS is a league where it is far easier to bring through academy players and play them and take chances with them and let them learn and let them make mistakes because you don't have relegation. You do have a forgiving playoff structure. You can take chances and see what you have. A guy like Edwin Cerrillo, I think, for Dallas, who was one of their best players on the field. Homegrown signing in February. Probably not expected to play as much as he has. The injury to Brian Acosta helped, and he's run with it. He's been outstanding. Really, really good in this match. That shows. But Dallas is in a different situation. If you played young players at the expense of good soccer, because you have the running the risk of it being more disjointed because you have young players who are going to make mistakes. Now, are they going to try stuff? And that some people view that as good soccer, and that's how they define it. Cool. But you also run the risk of young players making mistakes that cost you games. Where does it fall in the priority list? I don't know. I don't know where it falls in Atlanta. I think these are the things we're starting to learn as you get into year 3, and it's very different, and it's a different vibe, different feel, different set of results so far. I think we're starting to learn where these things fall on the priority list.
Also on the board from Sherbs, says that Mourinho also went to a rival. If Tata left for Red Bulls instead of El Tri, hell, even he might not be regarded the same, especially if he reminded us of the championship he won with gestures on the sideline while he beats us with a different team.
Yeah, very true. That factored into it with Manchester United. But I think it had turned sour when he left Chelsea, too. Before he went to Manchester United, I thought it had turned sour. Now, maybe it was because the fan base always expected him to go chase the Manchester United job because he really didn't hide that too much. That factors in, for sure. I thought the way he left the second time was harsher, too, but I think he was a different person, so I'd love to see the real 30 for 30 on Jose Mourinho down the road. When he's past all this and you can actually sit down and say, how much did it affect you to not get the Manchester United job when Sir Alex retired? How much did Real Madrid, affect you? And how much, I think, did it affect you because he was a translator / assistant coach at Barcelona while Pep Guardiola was a player. They weren't buddy-buddy, but they were friendly, and Guardiola has a very different philosophy about the game than Mourinho does now. I think when Mourinho went into management, it wasn't as different as it is now. Guardiola's success, Mourinho definitely tried to become the anti-Guardiola, and how much did that play into what he became? I just think it's a shame because he really changed from day one at Chelsea to final day at Manchester United. It didn't even feel like the same person. But that's a whole other discussion for another time. That's a Soccer Over There show.
Yes. At Star Stress, I told you old Barco equals GOAT is the handle.
I like the handle.
Hit the nail on the head. I'm not a person who boos or leaves early, but I'll gladly take that over apathy.
Yeah, agree. Apathy is the last thing you want here. The booing, the leaving early some people can take that as apathy. That part, not necessarily a fan. Booing, your voice and your opinion. I think sometimes you do need to think about how it can be perceived because a lot of people have said, when this came up, like, well, I was booing the referee, I was booing this, I was booing that. nobody knows. It's a boo. You can't tell who it's directed at or what it's directed at. That's definitely something that goes into it that can be weird. I think there was a whole lot made on the national broadcast about fans leaving early in the fan base, and I do wonder what the perception is nationally now. Not that it matters, like in the real grand scheme of things. I just wonder what people are saying, because people have had their knives out, I think, for Atlanta as a soccer city anyway. There's a lot of people who didn't believe in it, and there's a lot of people who are angry that it actually happened, and now it's taking joy in Atlanta fans struggling at the moment. And that's stupid. That's just stupid.
Joe Bost coming in, and this is the last thing on philosophy that we have. We have some other topics here in Tuesday Thoughts after this.
Cool.
Joe Bost, he says, being a newborn in my soccer life, my aspirations for my team is to have an attacking, fun style with Atlanta United as my team. Results are not critical. Obviously, I want them to be in the playoff mix every year. Quality on the field is important.
Yeah, I think there's scales. I think Joe kind of hits it on the head there, is that if you're on the quality side, like I want attacking soccer, I want them to play a certain way, that's what I enjoy, you want a certain level of results to be acceptable. And, of course, you want some trophies, along the way. If you're a win at all costs, that's all you want, how much does the style of play matter to you, or does it? Is there any scale there? The identity of bringing through young players, where does that factor in for you? I think there's always scales, and I think it's not 100 and 0 for people. It's somewhere in between. I mean, personally, like the teams that I feel emotional connections to, I do want them to play good soccer. If it's a soccer team, I want them to play good football, good basketball. If it's a basketball team, football team, what have you. I do want to enjoy the quality of the performance. I do want to see some winning as well. But yeah, I guess I would fall more on the romantic side of it, the idealism side versus the pragmatism side.
Yeah.
That's the crux of the discussion in Argentina. Bielsa's off to the side of it and his school of thought. But Cesar Luis Menotti and Carlos Bilardo are the two legends of Argentine soccer from a management perspective, and they're direct opposites. Both won a World Cup. Both had completely different schools of thought. Both have represented different ways of thinking about the game. And it's, that's it. It's down to pragmatism, win at all costs, idealism, romanticism, playing the right way, anti-football on one side, that's it. And as a soccer fan in Argentina, generally you're defined by one or the other. Bielsa combines a little bit of elements of both. I think he's probably a little more towards the idealism side, but there are pragmatic elements in him, and people from his school definitely kind of pull from both. Tata Martino, more pragmatic than the general Bielsa disciple. Mauricio Pochettino, I think he leans more towards the idealism side. Guardiola's interesting because I think he does combine both. And I think he's created kind of his own way. That's soccer. That's why we love it. That's why we love it. There is no one way. There never will be. There are so many different ways to view the game, look at the game, feel about the game. It's fun to dig into this from time to time and kind of check in on how the feeling is developing in Atlanta, because it is developing. You haven't had a team at this level at this quality for this period of time ever. So how you feel about the game, Joe Bost is a brand new fan. Others have followed teams elsewhere and are fans here. It's those feelings and what you want and how you define good, bad, indifferent. Those are evolving, and I think they'll continue to. It's just interesting to check in on it from time to time. So thank you for indulging us. We appreciate it.
Part 2 from Joe quickly. He says, if Atlanta United played like Red Bulls, I couldn't be a fan, wouldn't be an Atlanta United fan today.
That's interesting because there's people who do like the helter-skelter style that Red Bulls bring. For me, I do agree with Joe. It's not what I would prefer. There is the connection that, okay, Atlanta's my team. I'm going to support Atlanta because I'm in Atlanta. Like, that's going to be there for a lot of people. But would it be as emotional if it was press, run, chase? To me, that's not how I define good soccer. Doesn't mean it can't be effective. It's just not the style that I enjoy as much. I'm not going to be as emotionally connected. Then for something like that, you got to win. Maybe that's part of what's going on with Red Bulls. Maybe that's part of what's going on with the fan base. It's, yeah, okay, this is something. It's something. It's had some success, but it's not winning MLS Cup, and we're kind of over it. Has that factored in? I don't know. It'd be an interesting conversation with Red Bulls fans and people who follow that team day in and day out.
And a couple of non-philosophical thoughts to wrap up today. Fantasy update.
Fantasy update. We'll have a big segment tomorrow on the fantasy update. Jason Wright has got his tips, his update on the standings in both the Pro Rel and the Open League. We'll have all that for you tomorrow because there's a number of games tomorrow.
5.
Yep, busy Wednesday in MLS.
All right. Eric Schwartz wanted to know what we thought about Dion Pereira's MLS debut. I thought it was good to see Dion get some run, and obviously, you show yourself worthy of being put in the 18 through your week at practice, and Frank de Boer needed something, and you saw it in Dion, so put Dion out there. Yeah,
Dion's a guy who 1v1 is where he thrives, and that was where that game had kind of fallen at that stage, was you needed somebody to win a 1v1 battle, create something out of nothing. Dion has shown that in Atlanta United too. He's shown that in his career at Watford. Good to see him get that opportunity, and he's been earning consistent spots in the 18 lately. So I'll be curious to see, since he didn't play a ton, does he play, and in what role does he play for Atlanta United 2 tomorrow against Tampa Bay? It's a big USL Championship game, and it's an opportunity for some guys to show that, hey, we're here on Saturday against Colorado if you need us. This midweek game for Atlanta United 2 provides a lot of opportunity for some of the young players.
Looking forward to that, with Tampa right now 4th in the standings in the East. And wrapping things up on the thoughts is Cairo, and it's 2 separate tweets here. His question, and I'll leave his answer out for the moment. Question: do we need to recalibrate expectations for Atlanta United this season? How much of a hole have the results so far actually dug? ?
I don't know what the expectations were. I don't think they were really defined coming in. So that's an interesting question, because I don't know what the expectation was. We kind of went around it a little bit with different questions on Stoppage Time and here on Soccer Down Here, and you'd get different answers. For some, it was 2 trophies. For some, it was be in the mix for multiple trophies. How much have the results affected you right now? You're 6 games in. You've earned 5 points. You are 4 points behind the last place in the playoff picture, Chicago, who's on 9 points in 7 matches. So you have a game in hand on them. Montreal, Orlando are on 11 points. You have 2 games in hand on them. 2 wins. You're equal with them. You can't take games in hand for granted, but you're not far out of that playoff picture. And then, honestly, DC United is on 14 points with 8 games played. You're 9 points back, 2 games in hand. The one that you look at right now is Toronto on 13 points, same number of games played. They're 8 points ahead of you, equal number of games. That's kind of your measuring stick right now at the top. You're behind, but you're not in a hole yet. I don't think you're anywhere near a hole yet. Now, what has this done? It's made May, which we'd always kind of zeroed in on as a very difficult section of the schedule with travel and with midweek matches. It makes May more important than you wanted it to be. That's what the early results have done. You're going to have to pick up some points in some tough spots in the next month. you're going to have to come up with some ways to get points out of a home match on Sunday, a trip to Vancouver on Wednesday, a trip to Red Bull Arena on Sunday, a trip to Real Salt Lake the following Friday. That's a tough 4-game stretch, and you're going to have to find points in it. It's not okay now to say that the travel has, made this impossible. There's no way we can get points out of it. You got to go find points in impossible situations now. That's a challenge. It's a challenge that this team can meet, but it's a challenge.
Yeah. Cairo's answer was, he said he didn't think anything's changed yet. Supporter Shield's probably out of reach, but it was always the biggest climb. More emphasis on Open Cup to be the easiest path to a trophy and a CONCACAF Champions League spot. We're somewhere between try to get a top spot and just get into the MLS playoffs, then make a strong run.
I don't think you're anywhere in just try to get into the playoffs yet. I think you are looking at top 4. You're looking at a hosting playoff match scenario. That's where you want to be. You're 8 points out of 4th place right now. 2 games in hand on Columbus and Philadelphia. That's fine. You're fine in that regard. So I wouldn't put it to that yet. That you let's just get in. And that'll be okay. I think you're looking more than that right now. Open Cup's going to be interesting because it's going to fall in the Copa America window where you're going to be missing Joseph. You could be missing Pity. It's going to come in maybe at the tail end of the U20 World Cup where you could be missing Carlton. You will likely be missing Barcoats depending on how that all gets handled. The Gold Cup, you could be missing a Darlington Nagby during that time. The Gold Cup, the Open Cup, I do think becomes more important. I do think in that gap because you're going to be able to play first-team guys without league games around it in June. It's going to become more important, but you are going to be missing some guys due to international duty. That's just the fact that you're facing.
And we are officially caught up.
All right, and we're officially going to go. And we'll be back tomorrow, 9 o'clock on the show, Wall Pass Wednesday, taking your questions. We will talk to Mike Conti from 92.9 The Game. We'll also have USL Championship in 10 later today. Get caught up on the championship ahead of Atlanta United 2 hosting Tampa Bay. We'll talk about that tomorrow as well. We'll also have some Roots Up podcasts for you today, digging into the lower divisions of American soccer. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody who came out last night. Thanks, everybody who donated to Soccer in the Streets. And thanks to all the great discussion today on just how we feel about all this. It's fun to do that from time to time. Great discussion. Thanks, everybody, for being part of it. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha lemonade, y'all.